The Trump administration has announced the creation of a nearly $2 billion fund to compensate allies of the president who believe they have been unjustly investigated and prosecuted. The Anti-Weaponization Fund is part of a settlement that resolves President Trump's lawsuit against the IRS over the leak of his tax returns.
All right, so we're going to bring in our chief legal analyst, Khalif Rhodes. When you hear this, what do you make of this?
Confused. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the best thing I can say. I mean, and the reason why I say that is I recognize that there have been settlements within the presidential executive branch over the years. There have been a number, but typically there's a causal connection to the settlement in the underlying case, and there seems to be zero connection when you look at this case. It started with President Trump on one side suing the IRS, who's under his administration, on the other side. And this is not coming from me. This is coming from the court. When they were in the hearing, the judge asked the same question that I said to Trump's attorneys. Do you find that this is a weird position to be in, where you are on both sides of the argument? And after some point when the judge kept asking the questions, you could see the attorneys didn't have an answer for it. And so then they walked back, and now we come to this settlement. The issue that I have with this is that this was about his tax returns being leaked by an independent contractor that worked for the IRS. It had nothing to do with the weaponization or the potential allegations of weaponization or lawfare, as Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche says, within the department. And so the connection between the two, there's a large gap. Additionally, with those previous ones, there was extremely large oversight, judicial oversight. Not to mention congressional oversight, congressional authority, but there was judicial oversight. This one, they actually went as far to say that the courts should not and cannot review this settlement, which is typically not the case. Any type of time like parties come together and agree to settle, the court would approve any future settlements, and that's just not happening here.
So this fund, which is interestingly enough $1.776 billion, which is the year our country was founded, 1776. All right, so this fund meant to compensate people who say they were targeted by past administrations, right, Khalif? How does someone prove to even qualify to be compensated?
Right now, I think I hate to make that response, but it's an example of building the plane and attempting to fly it at the same time. And sometimes in government, you have to do that when you're like responding to a quick something that's occurring, and okay, we have to put a patchwork on it while we figure out the details in the mix. You know, the 9/11 type of funds, I think is probably the best example. There was an emergency, you needed to get resources to folks, and then we'll figure out how do we fix this down the road, but right now we know there's a need. I think they're attempting to utilize that same approach. Todd Blanche mentioned that there will be a bipartisan, nonpartisan. He also added application process to anyone that feels like they have been, as he mentioned, a victim of lawfare, can seek compensation and apology. So I'm not sure how you go under the apology category or how you would go under the compensation category. None of that is flushed out, and typically that would come through congressional action by when they appropriate the funds. They'd say how these funds could be used and what the mechanism for getting application to these funds will look like.
Khalif, kind of a two-part here. Do you anticipate any legal challenges to that because of the way they're appropriating funds or trying to appropriate funds? And then also, if they do end up getting this fund started, would the public have any right to know who's on the receiving end of it?
I mean, that's why we're saying there's a lack of transparency surrounding the settlement. There's a lack of transparency surrounding the process. And I don't need a crystal ball. All I got to do is look at last week what happened. 100+ congressional members filed a lawsuit attempting to stop this settlement from happening. The court didn't listen to that argument and allowed this to go forward. So yes, I think there will be future litigation because those 100+ congressmen are saying, hey, we don't think this should even started, let alone take place. The Trump administration will point to President Obama's doing this in the past, and I can say there is a clear distinction between the two. Lawsuit brought by black farmers, Native American farmers. Remember, this is a lawsuit. Congress already appropriated funds. They settled based on that lawsuit. Causal connection. Lawsuit for discrimination against black farmers. Settlement directly connected to black farmers. Congress appropriates funds to those farmers. That's how that's supposed to work. This is not how it's supposed to work, where you have three different branches kind of not working together and one branch saying, we're telling you what we're going to do.
All right, interesting. Khalif, thank you so much.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.